Session 1, The Good God, is such an exciting session because you're starting to get people with the format of the way the sessions are going to go. You're introducing some ideas. You're setting a trajectory for the rest of the series. And so to be able to call this session The Good God is fantastic because not only are we really excited about this material, but ultimately we're most excited about God and introducing him, introducing people to him.
Now, so we've got
this.
all the way through Life Explored, there's this opening question. What was the general idea with these opening questions? So this week we've got what's the best gift God could give you? What's the general thinking behind all of these questions?
When we came up with that as a question, it was a real light bulb moment because we just thought actually that crystallizes what people are living for really well. What is the best gift of all the things that God could give you? What is the thing that you would want the most? And it's a bit like in Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter book, the Mirror of Erised. So when they go in to look, and Harry sees his family, and Ron sees himself as Quidditch captain and head boy, and it's holding up that mirror to people and saying, what does your heart desire most?
Yes.
What is most appealing to you?
What did people want? When you did it on your table and you said, right, what's the best gift God could give you? What are some of the answers that you got?
Immediately, someone wants to break the tension by making a joke. So someone will just say like chocolate or money or whatever, and just to try and calm it down. And that's fine. Like we're not saying, I
was going to say, so what would your guidance be to leaders if it's their first week and somebody just says something which is completely, like they're just trying to make a joke or whatever, or they say something which you're sitting there thinking, theologically, that's really off base. That's really, what's your advice?
So we just literally let people answer the question as they want to.
Yeah.
Now, there are some ways I think you can help draw out a few of those things a bit better for people.
Yeah.
You might want to, after a little bit of time, because sometimes people say a joke and then sometimes people say a world peace, or they go like super conceptual and stuff they weren't really worrying about that day.
Yeah.
But then if you just ask another question, so what was the best gift God could have given you today?
Yes.
You just help them to sort of go, I'm now reflecting on what my heart desires.
It's very revealing, isn't it? Now, immediately before you asked that question at the beginning, we see a short film. This week it's very short. It's like 3.5 minutes, I think. What's the idea of that opening short film this week? How does it connect?
Like I said, this session 1 is kind of setting trajectory. It's kind of that film, the overture is just an overture. It contains, all the sort of films that you're going to see kind of mashed up together, kind of mixed in with a great voiceover that talks about, what is the one thing? What is the one thing that you can't live without or that you're looking for? So you're going to see a lot of things in there that you might not be able to make sense of, but ultimately over the rest of the series, those things will start to make sense. You'll see the backstory for each of those characters.
So I think it's quite important for leaders to say, just immediately before they put the film on, I think it's important to say, you're going to see some clips now from this whole series. Yeah. Just so that you know what's coming. Otherwise, when you see some of these clips, you might be like, we're seeing a guy with a lawnmower. What's the connection there?
Is he connected to the guy in the spaceship?
Yeah, exactly. So it's really useful just to flag up, okay, you're going to see like a preview of the journey we're going on.
Yeah.
So this is where we're going. Okay, so we have talked about the opening film for the evening, Overture Part 1.
Yeah.
We then have that discussion question, what's the best gift God could give you?
Yeah.
And then what happens? What's the next thing?
Well, just before we watched the second film for that evening, Overture Part 2, which is Rico doing the teaching in session 1, just before that we have a Bible reading. So you're just going to read 4 verses of the first chapter of Genesis, and then people are ready to watch Overture Part 2, the teaching film for session 1.
Is there a connection between that opening question that we ask, what's the best gift God could give you, and this talk that we hear Rico giving?
Yeah, fundamentally, Rico is going to give you an answer to that question during that teaching. And he's going to do that as he explores the glory and the garbage, the Blaise Pascal quote. And you're also going to see some of those clips from the first film. Overture Part 1.
Right. Because there is a through line there, isn't there, all the way through?
Yeah.
So that first film, Overture Part 1, obviously explicitly says what's the best gift God could give you.
Yeah.
Then people get a chance to discuss that.
Yeah.
Then they hear Rico teaching on it. So there's a very clear through line there.
Yeah. But again, there might be some moments where you're thinking, okay, he's talking about, this, and we're cutting away to, like, I'm seeing a guy like mowing his lawn, or I'm seeing this woman in Japan, and I just want to say to people, just all will become clear. Like, don't panic if you're seeing a few things that seem to not immediately connect.
So that's the mantra. You just say, your leader say,
do not panic.
all will become clear.
Yeah, all will become
clear. So we've just had the teaching from Rico, Overture Part 2.
Yeah.
And then we go into a Bible study, and the way that we introduce that is there's a connecting line for the leader to read, isn't there, which says, everyone seeks happiness, but are we searching in the right place?
Yeah.
That's picking up the last thing I think Rico says in the teaching. We're going to look at a part of the Bible that explores that question, Psalm 19, and then the leader will read Psalm 19 and then tip into the Bible study. What's the thinking with the Bible study?
Psalm 19, which is absolutely glorious. In fact, this is probably one of the things that in the whole 5 years of development had probably lasted longest. Do you know what I mean? This is one of the earliest pieces that actually stayed in, because it talks so wonderfully about God's work in creation and also God revealing himself in his word, the Bible.
So I always say when I'm leading this, so God reveals himself in two ways. The Bible says he reveals himself through the world, but he also reveals himself through the word. And so obviously we're trying to tap into people's sense of awe and wonder. We want them to feel, what do you feel when you look at the stars, the skies at night, you see the stars? How does that make you feel? Now, how much more incredible must the creator of those stars be if that's... Do you want to meet him? That's the kind of the dynamic of it. And of course, with the Bible study, you then go into, what the psalmist says, which is that actually it's the law of the Lord, the Bible, that reveals this God to us supremely. And so really the reason this is here, I guess, in session 1 is because we're just encouraging people to come back. We're saying we are looking at the Bible, but actually isn't it worth looking at the Bible? Because you could meet this extraordinary, this good God that we've been talking about.
Who's even greater than the creation that you marvel at and you wonder at. If we look at just a couple of the questions, particular questions in the study, you've written notes on yours, but so like with these first kind of 2 questions, or I suppose 3 really, they're quite focused on particular verses. Is there any particular reason why we've gone to say, explicitly verse 1 or explicitly verse 2 to 4?
I think there's 2 things. One is otherwise if it just becomes a discussion where everybody's just sort of trying to answer the questions out of their head, you can just go all over the shop. So we want people to be focused in the discussion. We also want them to get into the habit of actually really putting their weight on God's word to find the answers that they're looking for. So I guess that would be the thinking there.
Because it's interesting when you sometimes, particularly if you're working with kids or with teenagers, you can ask them a question with a Bible passage open, and they sort of sit back and then they look up at the ceiling and they start, and you sort of go, is the verse written up there? Or something? And you want to say, no, let's really get our noses right in so that we can see what this is saying. So it's not about my view and your view, it's about what is the passage actually saying, and have we understood it properly?
And I think one final thing I'd want to say before we wrap this up would be that with all of these Bible studies, and you can see it right here if you look at question 6, which is the penultimate question. If you knew Psalm 19 was true, how would it affect the way you feel about God? This is not just a kind of I was brought up to be very suspicious of feelings. I come from a very kind of conservative, evangelical, but wonderful upbringing. But there was always that thing of you should never trust feelings. But actually, feelings can have a purpose. They can lead us to the God who created feelings. And so we want to try and put people in a space where they start to imagine what it might feel like if these things were true. Absolutely. To try and cultivate in them almost a desire for these things to be true. What would it be like to know the creator of the stars? What would it be like So wouldn't that be extraordinary? Wouldn't you want that?
And then obviously the absolute question, brackets if time, question 7, the
Right.
absolute last question. What has been most striking for you during this session? And that's the time where people, can bring out those things. Oh, what about this from the Overture Part 1 film? What about this that we discussed in the, what's the best gift God could give you? What about this from what Rico said? What about this from elsewhere in the Bible study? And, we would always finish at 9 o'clock. So we would start at 8, but we would always finish at 9. And I would say, people, you're absolutely free to go. And but if you'd like to stay, then that can be a great opportunity to pick up those conversations. Now, obviously, if people are doing one-to-one, which a lot of people will be, that will be just a little bit more of a reflective time. Maybe they've not got to rush off. And they can say, okay, from session 1, Life Explored, the good God, this is what surprised me. This is what I wasn't expecting. And that comes amazingly.